Change Your Thoughts? Change Your Life, by Drive. Wayne W. Dyer. Introduction. Imagine a man, a keeper of ancient records, living in a time of great turmoil and decay. He sees kingdoms warring, people suffering, and the world around him losing its balance. Disheartened, he decides he's seen enough. He mounts an ox and begins a long, slow journey westward, toward the desert, leaving the chaos of civilization behind. But at the final gate, a guard stops him. This isn't just any guard, he recognizes the old man. He knows of his reputation as a prophet, a man of profound wisdom. And he makes a simple, heartfelt request. Before you disappear into the vast unknown, please, write down the essence of what you know. The old man, whose name was Lao Tzu, agrees. He sits and, with just 5,000 characters, records a teaching so simple yet so deep that it would echo through the next 2,500 years. He hands the text to the guard and continues his journey, vanishing into the desert, never to be seen again. That text became known as the Tao Te Ching. It's a book that has been translated more than any other in the world, except for the Bible. And today, we're going to journey into its heart, guided by a modern master who spent an entire year of his life absorbed in its wisdom. Drive. Wayne W. Dyer. His book, Change Your Thoughts? Change Your Life, isn't just a commentary, it's the story of how these ancient verses transformed him, and how they can transform you. Wayne Dyer was already a world-renowned author in the field of self-development, a man who had reached millions. But one morning, after reading a translation of the Tao Te Ching, he felt a pull, a calling he couldn't ignore. He became obsessed, ordering 10 different translations and spending every single day for a year meditating on one verse at a time. He would wake before dawn, sit with images of Lao Tzu, and ask a simple question: what did you mean? And how does this apply to our world today? What flowed onto the page, he said, felt like it came from somewhere else entirely. It was a surrender to ideas that defied simple logic, ideas that were paradoxical, mysterious, and profoundly life-changing. And my promise to you today is that by the end of our time together, you'll understand the core of that mystery. You'll grasp the secret to living a life that is balanced, joyful, and peaceful, not by adding more, but by letting go. You'll learn the art of doing nothing, yet leaving nothing undone, and discover a strength you never knew you had, a strength that comes not from force, but from softness. This isn't just about ancient philosophy, it's about a practical, powerful way to navigate your life, right here, right now. Book summary. So what is this mysterious thing called the Tao? Well, the very first verse of the Tao Te Ching tells us something fascinating. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Think about that. It's like trying to describe the taste of water. You can use words like refreshing or clear, but you can never truly capture the experience of drinking it. The moment you label it, you've lost the essence. The Tao is like that. It's the supreme, unnameable source of everything. It's the silent, invisible force that animates the entire universe. It never begins and it never ends. It does nothing, and yet, it accomplishes everything. Wayne Dyer explains that this is where we in the Western world often get stuck. We love to define things, to categorize them, to put them in neat little boxes. We think in terms of opposites, good or bad, right or wrong, strong or weak. But the Tao is both and neither. It lives in paradox. It's the idea that beauty only exists because we have a concept of ugliness. That tall only has meaning because of short. That life and death are two sides of the same coin. A sage, a person who lives in harmony with the Tao, understands this. They live with what Dyer calls paradoxical unity. They see the world of 10,000 things, all the forms and objects we can name, but they also feel the nameless, formless source from which it all comes. Imagine a daffodil in a field. Does it look at a daisy and think, that daisy is ugly? Of course not. An eagle doesn't judge a mouse for being small. They simply are, existing in perfect harmony with their nature. This is the first great lesson, to let go of our constant need to judge and label everything and everyone, including ourselves. When we can do that, a profound sense of peace begins to settle in. We stop fighting with reality and start flowing with it. This leads to one of the most powerful, and perhaps most difficult ideas in the entire teaching, the concept of non-action, or wu-wei. The 37th verse says, "The Tao does nothing, but leaves nothing undone." At first, this sounds like a recipe for laziness. Do nothing? How can anything get done if we do nothing? But this isn't about being inactive. It's about ceasing to force things. It's about trusting the natural rhythm of life. Think about trying to fall asleep. The harder you try to sleep, the more awake you become. Sleep only comes when you let go, when you surrender and allow it to happen. Think about a gardener. You can't force a tomato plant to grow. You can't pull on it to make it taller. Your job is to create the right conditions, good soil, water, sunlight, and then you have to trust the process. You have to allow it to grow. Life is the same. We spend so much energy pushing, striving, and trying to control every outcome. We have detailed 5-year plans and we get frustrated when life doesn't follow our script. Lao Tzu, through Dyer, is telling us to ease our grip. He says, stop trying to control. Let go of fixed plans and concepts, and the world will govern itself. This doesn't mean you shouldn't have dreams or goals. It means you hold them lightly. You do your part, you plant the seeds, but you trust the great, organizing intelligence of the universe, the Tao, to handle the rest. You allow things to unfold naturally. When you do this, something magical happens. The right people show up. The right opportunities appear. Things fall into place in ways you never could have orchestrated. Because you're no longer fighting the current, you're flowing with it. As the book beautifully puts it, allow your life to unfold naturally. Know that it too is a vessel of perfection. This is where the ego comes in. Our ego is that part of us that believes we're separate from everyone and everything else. It's the part that needs to be right, to win, to accumulate, and to take credit. It's the source of our striving. The 7th verse gives us a powerful secret. Heaven is eternal, the earth endures. Why do heaven and earth last forever? They do not live for themselves only. The sun doesn't shine for itself. The river doesn't flow for itself. They give constantly without asking for anything in return. A sage, Dyer explains, learns to live this way. They live beyond the ego. The sage puts himself last and so ends up ahead. He stays a witness to life, so he endures. This is another great paradox. By serving the needs of others, all your own needs are fulfilled. When you give without expecting anything back, the universe, in its perfect balance, ensures that you are always taken care of. Your focus shifts from "what can I get?" to "how can I serve?" And in that shift, you find a fulfillment that no amount of accumulation can ever provide. It's like being a gardener who tends to the whole garden, not just one plant. By nourishing the entire ecosystem, your own plant thrives more than it ever could in isolation. One of the most beautiful metaphors for this way of being is water. The 8th verse says, "The supreme good is like water, which nourishes all things without trying to." Think about water. It's soft and weak, yet it can carve through the hardest rock. It doesn't fight. It doesn't try to climb to the highest peaks. It flows effortlessly to the lowest places, the places that everyone else avoids, and because of this humility, it becomes the master of all things. All streams and rivers ultimately flow to the sea because the sea lies below them. To live like water is to be flexible. It's to be gentle. It's to be humble. The 76th verse tells us, "A man is born gentle and weak. At his death he is hard and stiff. A newborn baby is incredibly pliable. You can put their toes in their mouth. But as we age, we become rigid, both in body and in mind. Stiffness is a companion of death, flexibility is a companion of life. Wayne Dyer shares the image of a tall palm tree in a hurricane. While the mighty, rigid oak tree might snap in the wind, the palm tree bends almost to the ground. And because it can yield, because it is flexible, it survives. When we apply this to our lives, it means letting go of our rigid opinions. It means being willing to listen to another point of view. It means not having to be right all the time. When you can bend, you cannot be broken. You learn that in weakness, there is incredible strength. This way of living naturally leads to a life of simplicity and contentment. In a world that is constantly screaming more, 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 the Tao whispers, enough. Verse 44 asks some piercing questions. Which means more to you? You or your renown? Which brings more to you? You or what you own? It goes on to say, I say what you gain is more trouble than what you lose. Every possession you accumulate becomes another thing to worry about, to ensure, to protect. The endless chase for more wealth, more status, more approval. It's exhausting. And it never leads to lasting peace. Dyer calls it the disease of more. The cure is realizing that you already have enough. The 33rd verse says, if you realize that you have enough, you are truly rich. Contentment isn't about getting what you want, it's about wanting what you have. It's a shift in mindset from lack to appreciation. It's finding joy in simple things, a healthy meal, a walk in nature, the company of loved ones. The 80th verse paints a beautiful picture of a utopian village where people are content with this simple life. They have weapons, but they don't use them. They have boats and carriages, but no one uses them because they love their homes and have no desire to travel far. They enjoy the labor of their hands and aren't obsessed with inventing labor-saving machines. They live within sight of their neighbors, but they leave each other in peace. This isn't a call to abandon modern society. It's a reminder that true happiness doesn't come from external things. It comes from an inner state of peace and gratitude. It's about finding your own utopia right where you are. Wayne Dyer emphasizes that this path of simplicity and humility is the path of true leadership. A great leader isn't someone who controls and commands. The 17th verse says, with the greatest leader above them, people barely know one exists. Think about that. The best leader creates an environment where people feel empowered, where they feel they are in charge of their own success. When the work is done, they all say, we did it ourselves. This leader doesn't need to take credit. They don't rule with force or fear. They lead by example, with humility, like the sea staying low. They trust the people they lead, and in turn, they are trusted. They don't impose their will, they help people find their own true nature. This brings us to one of the most profound and perhaps challenging aspects of living the Tao, living without enemies. Verse 69 makes a powerful statement. There is no greater misfortune than feeling I have an enemy, for when I and enemy exist together, there is no room left for my treasure. What is your treasure? It's your peace. It's your connection to the Tao. When you hold on to anger, resentment, and the idea of an enemy, you give away that treasure. You allow someone else to occupy your mind and steal your peace. The Amish community in Pennsylvania, after the horrific schoolhouse shooting, provided a living example of this teaching. They didn't just forgive the killer, they invited his family to mourn with them. They said, we have no enemies. We are all God's children. They understood that harboring hatred would only destroy them from the inside. Lao Tzu teaches that in any conflict, the one without an enemy will surely triumph. This doesn't mean you become a doormat. It means you operate from a place of compassion and understanding. It means you don't use force, because force always creates a counterforce. As the 30th verse warns, weapons often turn upon the wielder. Instead, you use the most powerful force in the universe. As the 67th verse concludes, love vanquishes all attackers, it is impregnable in defense. Heaven protects him with love. Ultimately, all of these teachings circle back to one central truth. You are not just this physical body, this temporary collection of bones and skin. You are a spiritual being, a piece of the eternal, formless Tao. The 50th verse is startling. It says that most people are followers of life or followers of death, clinging to this world. But there is 1 out of 10. So sure of life that tigers and wild bulls keep clear. Why? Because he dwells in that place where death cannot enter. When you realize your true essence, your eternal nature, the fear of death dissolves. And as Lao Tzu says in another verse, if you are not afraid of dying, there is nothing you cannot achieve. This isn't an abstract idea. It's something you can feel, right now. It's the silent awareness behind your thoughts. It's the life force that beats your heart without you having to do a thing. When you connect with that, you connect with the Tao. You realize you are not the wave, you are the ocean. The wave may rise and fall, but the ocean is eternal. So how do you get there? How do you live this God-realized life? The final verse, the 81st, brings it all home with beautiful simplicity. It says that sages do not accumulate. They give everything to others. The more he lives for others, the greater his life. The more he gives to others, the greater his abundance. The way of heaven, the way of the Tao, is to do good to all and harm none. The sage imitates this. He acts for the good of all and opposes no one. The entire journey of the Tao Te Ching, as Wayne Dyer so lovingly shares, is a journey of return. It's about returning to our source. It's about letting go of all the things we think we need, the labels, the possessions, the ego, the need to be right, and discovering the peace and wholeness that has been within us all along. It is, as Lao Tzu says, very easy to understand and very easy to practice. It is simply the wisdom of letting go and letting God. Commentary. As we come to the end of this journey through Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, it's hard not to feel a sense of profound calm. In a world that feels faster, louder, and more demanding than ever before, the wisdom of the Tao Te Ching feels like a cool drink of water on a hot day. It's not another thing to do. It's not a new productivity hack or a complicated system to master. In fact, it's the opposite. It's an invitation to undo. What struck me most about Wayne Dyer's interpretation is his deep, personal connection to this work. This wasn't just an intellectual exercise for him. You can feel that he lived these verses. He wrestled with them, he meditated on them, and he allowed them to change him from the inside out. He even shares in the epilogue how, just as he was finishing the book, he faced one of the greatest personal challenges of his life. He felt anger, he felt hurt, he felt the pull to create an enemy. And he said it was as if Lao Tzu himself appeared and said, "So you think you've mastered the great way? Here's an opportunity to explore your mastery." And he did. He applied the teachings. He chose peace. He refused to have an enemy. That's what makes this book so powerful. It's a testament to the fact that these aren't just pretty words, they are a practical guide to living with grace, even in the face of immense difficulty. The most potent lesson, for me, is the revolutionary idea of non-action and letting go. We live in a culture of hustle. We're taught that success comes from relentless effort, from forcing our will upon the world. The Tao suggests that true mastery comes from the opposite, from aligning ourselves with a greater intelligence and allowing things to unfold. This is incredibly liberating. It takes the pressure off. It means you don't have to have all the answers. You just have to stay open, stay humble, and trust the process. So, how can you start applying this ancient wisdom to your very modern life, starting today? Here are a few simple ways. First, practice the art of allowing. Just for today, pick one thing you've been trying to control. Maybe it's a situation at school, a relationship with a friend, or even your own feelings. Instead of trying to force a certain outcome, just step back. Be an observer. Allow it to be what it is, without judgment. Notice the sense of relief that comes from simply letting go of the struggle. Second, find strength in softness. The next time you find yourself in a disagreement, resist the urge to prove you're right. Don't raise your voice. Don't interrupt. Instead, listen. Try to understand the other person's perspective. Be like water. You might say something like, "I've never thought of it that way before. Thank you for sharing that." You'll be amazed at how this simple act of yielding can dissolve conflict and create connection. And third, live without accumulating, just for a little while. The Tao teaches that true abundance comes from giving, not getting. Find one thing today that you have a surplus of. It could be a book you've finished, a piece of clothing you no longer wear, or even just 5 minutes of your time to listen to someone who needs it. Give it away with no expectation of getting anything in return. Feel the richness that comes not from what you have, but from what you can give. That was a summary of Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life by Drive. Wayne W. Dyer. We've touched on some of the deepest currents of wisdom from the Tao Te Ching today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary is like looking at a picture of the ocean. The real magic happens when you dive in yourself. The true power is in letting these verses wash over you, letting them settle in your heart over time. This summary is your invitation to the water's edge. If anything we've discussed today has spoken to you, I wholeheartedly encourage you to pick up a copy of the book. Reading it isn't just an act of learning, it's an experience, a meditation that can genuinely and beautifully change the way you see yourself and the world. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you a moment of peace or a new perspective, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. It helps us reach more people who might need to hear these ideas. Let's keep exploring these life-changing books together.